Dark coastlines can shift from calm beauty to terrifying chaos when immense shapes rise beneath swimmers and boats without warning. Waves distort, objects vanish, and peaceful outings twist into violent underwater struggles. From live-streamed panic near deep reefs to split-second rescues overturned by raw force, expectations swing from awe to absolute fear. In this video, we'll uncover 6 chilling encounters as they unfold. The coastal town of Gansbaai sat nestled along the southernmost tip of South Africa, roughly 170 kilometers southeast of Cape Town. The region had earned its reputation as the great white shark capital of the world over the decades, with the cold Atlantic waters serving as a natural hunting ground for these apex predators. The area attracted marine researchers, cage diving operations, and adventure seekers from across the globe, all drawn by the promise of witnessing nature's most efficient hunters in their natural habitat. Local fishermen had long respected these waters, understanding that the abundance of Cape fur seals along nearby Dyer Island created an irresistible feeding opportunity for the massive predators that patrolled the deeper channels. Clara Mitchell had built a modest following documenting her ocean adventures across various social media platforms. The 27-year-old from Brisbane, Australia, had spent the previous 3 years traveling to remote coastal locations, capturing footage of marine life and geological phenomena that most people would never witness firsthand. Her content ranged from surfing sessions in Indonesia to freediving explorations in the Mediterranean, each video showcasing her genuine passion for the ocean and her seemingly fearless approach to aquatic environments. On the evening of November 15, 2025, Clara arrived at a popular beach near Gansbaai with a specific goal in mind. She had researched the occurrence of bioluminescent plankton in the region and determined that conditions were optimal for capturing footage of the glowing organisms. Her plan was straightforward: conduct a solo night swim approximately 50 meters from shore, document the bioluminescence with her waterproof camera equipment, and stream the entire experience to her audience, who had been requesting this type of content for months. The moon hung full and bright overhead as Clara waded into the surf around 9:30 that evening. 2 support staff members waited on a small motorboat roughly 80 meters offshore, positioned there as a safety precaution and to provide lighting assistance if needed. The water temperature registered at 16 degrees Celsius, cool but manageable with her wetsuit. She had conducted similar night swims at least 24 times across various locations without incident, which contributed to her confidence as she pushed beyond the breaking waves. Clara activated her streaming equipment and began narrating her experience, describing the phosphorescent glow that appeared with each movement of her arms and legs. The plankton responded beautifully to disturbance, creating trails of blue-green light that looked almost otherworldly in the darkness. She floated on her back, demonstrating how the organisms illuminated the water around her body, completely absorbed in capturing the perfect footage for her viewers. What Clara could not see was the massive shape approaching from deeper water. A 16-foot great white shark, likely a mature female based on the size, had detected the irregular splashing and movement from a considerable distance. These predators possessed electroreceptors called ampullae of Lorenzini, allowing them to detect the faint electrical signals produced by muscle contractions. Combined with their acute sense of smell and ability to sense vibrations through the water, great whites were extraordinarily efficient at locating potential prey even in complete darkness. The shark closed the distance with terrifying speed, its powerful tail propelling several tons of muscle and bone through the water with minimal effort. Clara felt the impact before she saw anything, a crushing force that clamped onto both legs simultaneously. The shark's serrated teeth, designed to tear through seal blubber and bone, punctured through her wetsuit and deep into tissue within a fraction of a second. The predator employed its characteristic attack pattern, biting down and then rotating its entire body in what marine biologists called the bite-and-spit behavior. This violent spinning motion served to incapacitate prey and assess whether the target contained enough fat content to justify continued predation. Clara found herself dragged beneath the surface, her scream cut short as water filled her mouth and nose. The livestream captured only muffled sounds and the chaotic swirling of bioluminescent water. The support staff on the motorboat reacted within seconds, gunning the engine toward Clara's last known position. One crew member grabbed a spotlight while the other prepared a rescue hook, both understanding the critical nature of the situation. However, the shark's initial strike had already pulled Clara into deeper water, beyond the illuminated zone where they could effectively intervene. The great white released its grip after approximately 8 seconds, likely determining that the struggling human did not match the profile of its preferred prey. Great whites typically preferred seals due to their high-fat content, and humans often did not trigger the same feeding response after the initial investigatory bite. Unfortunately, the damage inflicted during those crucial seconds proved catastrophic. Clara's femoral arteries had been severed, resulting in rapid blood loss that would have caused unconsciousness within minutes, even with immediate medical intervention. The support boat reached the area within 40 seconds of the attack, but Clara had already disappeared beneath the surface. One crew member dove in with a rescue buoy, while the other contacted emergency services on shore. They searched for nearly 10 minutes before locating her body floating approximately 15 meters from the attack site, kept partially buoyant by the air trapped in her wetsuit. South African maritime authorities recovered Clara's body at 11:15 that evening. The livestream had automatically saved to her account, where it remained visible until family members requested its removal 3 days later. Thousands of viewers had witnessed the attack in real time, many initially believing it was staged or edited before understanding the genuine horror of what had unfolded. The incident sparked renewed debate about the risks associated with night swimming in known great white territories, particularly during seal hunting seasons, when the sharks actively patrolled shallower waters. Marine biologists noted that Clara's swimming pattern, combined with the bioluminescent plankton that created additional visual stimulation, may have triggered an investigatory response from a shark that otherwise would have ignored a single swimmer. Clara's family released a statement acknowledging her passion for ocean exploration, while urging others to exercise extreme caution when entering waters inhabited by apex predators, particularly during low visibility conditions when humans could not adequately assess their surroundings. The stretch of California coastline near Monterey had long been recognized as one of the most biodiverse marine regions along the Pacific. The deep underwater canyon that ran close to shore created unique conditions where cold, nutrient-rich water upwelled, attracting everything from microscopic krill to massive whales. Local charter companies regularly navigated these waters, offering tourists glimpses of humpbacks, gray whales, and occasionally pods of orcas that followed migrating prey. On June 8, 2023, Samantha Cordova had rented a 40-foot yacht for her 30th birthday celebration, inviting 12 friends for an afternoon cruise along the coast. The vessel, captained by an experienced local sailor named Marcus, departed the marina at noon under cloudless skies. The Pacific remained unusually calm, with only gentle swells rocking the boat as it motored away from shore. The party settled into a comfortable rhythm. Samantha's friends spread across the deck, some lounging on cushioned benches, while others clustered near the stern where a portable speaker played music. Coolers held drinks and food, and the atmosphere carried the relaxed energy of people celebrating without obligations. Marcus maintained a steady course parallel to the shoreline, keeping the yacht in relatively shallow water where conditions stayed predictable. Around 2 in the afternoon, the celebration grew more animated. Several guests moved to the railings, leaning over to look at the water below. Someone started splashing handfuls of water at friends on the opposite side of the deck, triggering a playful water fight. Laughter and shouts filled the air as people dodged and retaliated, their movements creating disturbances in the water alongside the yacht. Marcus smiled at the revelry, maintaining a steady course while his passengers enjoyed themselves. The Orca breached without warning. 18 feet of muscle and mass launched from the water directly beside the yacht's starboard side, close enough that guests could see individual scars along its black and white markings. The whale crashed back down with tremendous force, sending a wall of water across the deck that soaked everyone and everything. Screams erupted as people scrambled away from the railing. Before anyone could process what had happened, the Orca rammed the hull. The impact resonated through the entire vessel like a collision with a submerged log, except this obstacle was alive and intentional. Glasses and plates flew from tables, clattering across the deck. Samantha grabbed a railing to steady herself while her friend Derek tumbled sideways, catching himself against a cabin wall. Marcus rushed to assess the damage, his mind racing through worst-case scenarios about hull integrity. The Orca surfaced again, this time on the port side, its massive tail slapping against the fiberglass with bone-jarring force. The yacht rocked violently, tilting at an angle that sent unsecured items sliding across the deck. One guest, Patricia, fell hard against a bench, splitting her lip. The Orca circled the yacht 3 times, each pass bringing it closer. Its behavior seemed neither aggressive nor playful in any recognizable sense, more like curiosity mixed with territorial assertion. Marcus had witnessed orcas hunting seals before, had seen them coordinate attacks with frightening intelligence, but direct interaction with boats remained rare and unpredictable. Samantha's boyfriend Miguel had been recording video on his phone when the first breach occurred. He captured the subsequent rams and tail slaps, though his hands shook so badly the footage jumped and blurred. Other guests huddled in the cabin, refusing to stay on the exposed deck. After roughly 6 minutes that felt infinitely longer, the orca departed. It swam toward deeper water with powerful flukes, disappearing beneath the surface without looking back. The sudden absence of threat felt almost as disorienting as its arrival. Marcus completed a damage assessment. The hull had sustained superficial cracks and dents, but nothing catastrophic. Patricia's split lip required ice and pressure. Another guest, Thomas, had twisted his ankle during the chaos. Everyone else escaped with only bruises and psychological shock. The yacht limped back to the marina, arriving just before sunset. Samantha's birthday had transformed from a celebration into a survival story, the kind of experience that would dominate conversations for years. Marine biologists later suggested the orca had likely been drawn by the splashing and movement in the water, interpreting the activity as potential prey or something worth investigating. The encounter reinforced an uncomfortable truth. Even non-aggressive interactions with apex predators carried inherent danger simply due to their size and power. The Southern California coastline had served military purposes for over a century, with the U.S. Navy maintaining several training facilities along remote stretches of beach and offshore waters. These areas provided ideal conditions for underwater operations training, combining deep channels with rocky underwater terrain that mimicked combat environments. The region also happened to overlap with seasonal migration routes for various shark species, though military personnel rarely encountered them during routine operations. Lieutenant Jason Carter had served with the Navy for 8 years, specializing in underwater demolition and salvage operations. At 34, he possessed extensive freediving certification and had logged hundreds of hours beneath the surface. On December 10, 2024, his assignment involved inspecting a deliberately sunken training vessel, checking for structural degradation that might pose hazards to future exercises. Carter entered the water at dawn, accompanied by a support crew aboard a rigid-hull inflatable boat stationed 50 meters from the dive site. The morning ocean temperature measured 16 degrees Celsius, requiring a thick wetsuit but remaining within acceptable parameters for the mission. Visibility extended roughly 12 meters through unusually clear water, allowing Carter to observe schools of perch and rockfish moving through nearby kelp beds. The sunken vessel rested at a depth of 23 meters, its hull partially embedded in the sandy bottom. Carter descended along a guide rope, equalizing pressure as he went, his movements efficient and controlled. He carried a dive knife strapped to his calf, a standard safety measure, along with an underwater slate for recording observations. The inspection proceeded without incident for approximately 15 minutes. Carter photographed sections of corroded metal, noted areas where marine growth had accelerated, and checked welds that showed signs of stress. He maintained awareness of his air consumption and bottom time, planning to surface within another 10 minutes. The great white had been patrolling the deeper channel beyond the wreck site, a mature female measuring just over 20 feet. December brought cooler water temperatures that attracted elephant seals to nearby rookeries, and the shark had learned to hunt along routes between feeding and breeding grounds. Carter's irregular movements near the wreck, combined with the contrast of his dark wetsuit against lighter sand, triggered its investigatory behavior. Carter did not detect the shark's approach. The attack came from below and behind, the predator surging upward with explosive acceleration. Its jaws clamped onto his left leg above the knee, the force crushing bone and severing muscle instantaneously. The momentum drove Carter upward through the water column, spinning him as the shark thrashed its massive head. He attempted to deploy his dive knife, reaching down even as shock began flooding his system. His hand found the handle, and he managed 2 shallow stabs into the shark's snout before his grip weakened. The blade tumbled away into darker water below. The support crew witnessed the attack from their position on the surface. Petty Officer Rachel Mendez saw the distinctive dorsal fin break the surface, followed immediately by thrashing that created a visible disturbance. She radioed for emergency assistance while the boat's coxswain, Chief Marcus Holloway, maneuvered closer to the scene. The shark released Carter after roughly 20 seconds, likely determining he did not match its preferred prey profile. His body surfaced face down, trailing blood that spread in an expanding slick. Holloway brought the boat alongside within 45 seconds of the initial attack, and Mendez pulled Carter from the water with assistance from another crew member. Carter had lost consciousness from blood loss and shock. Mendez applied a tourniquet to his leg, while Holloway pushed the boat's engine to maximum speed toward shore. They radioed ahead to have medical personnel standing by at the dock, providing continuous updates on Carter's deteriorating condition. Despite reaching shore within 8 minutes and immediate trauma intervention, Carter never regained consciousness. The shark had severed his femoral artery along with catastrophic muscle and bone damage. He was pronounced dead 16 minutes after being pulled from the water. The Navy launched an immediate investigation into the incident. Marine biologists examined photographs of Carter's injuries and confirmed great white shark dentition patterns. The training area was temporarily closed while authorities conducted additional surveys, though no further shark sightings occurred. Carter's family received full military honors at his funeral. His commanding officer noted that he had understood and accepted the inherent risks of underwater operations, though shark attacks remained exceptionally rare among thousands of annual training dives. The incident prompted updated protocols for dive operations during seasons when large predators frequented the area, including mandatory shark watches and revised emergency response procedures. The stretch of California coastline known as Huntington Beach has earned its reputation as Surf City, USA, through decades of consistent waves and vibrant beach culture. The pier extended over 1,000 feet into the Pacific, serving as both a landmark and a gathering point for tourists and locals alike. Lifeguard towers dotted the sand at regular intervals, staffed by highly trained professionals who monitored one of the busiest beaches in the United States. During the summer months, tens of thousands of visitors descended on the sand daily, creating constant demand for vigilant water safety personnel. Hannah McKenzie had worked as an ocean lifeguard for 7 years, starting as a seasonal employee during college and eventually securing a full-time position. At 29, she possessed certifications in advanced water rescue, emergency medical response, and specialized training for handling marine life encounters. Her typical shift involved scanning assigned zones through binoculars, responding to minor medical incidents, and occasionally swimming out to assist struggling swimmers caught in rip currents. On July 22, 2024, the afternoon began as another routine summer day. The temperature reached 28 degrees Celsius by noon, drawing massive crowds to the water. Surfers clustered near the pier pilings where waves broke with dependable consistency, while families waited in shallower areas closer to shore. Hannah's tower overlooked a section of beach popular with intermediate swimmers. People were confident enough to venture beyond the breakers, but not experienced enough to recognize dangerous conditions. Around 2:30 in the afternoon, Hannah spotted a situation developing roughly 70 meters offshore. A teenage swimmer appeared to be struggling against a mild rip current, his arms flailing in movements that suggested panic rather than controlled swimming. Hannah grabbed her rescue board and sprinted into the surf, paddling hard once the water reached sufficient depth. The swimmer, a 16-year-old named Kevin Ochoa visiting from Arizona, had exhausted himself fighting the current. By the time Hannah reached him, he was barely keeping his head above water. She called out instructions for him to grab the back handle of her rescue board, her voice calm and authoritative despite the urgency. Kevin complied, his grip desperate and shaking. Hannah began paddling back toward shore, angling across the current rather than fighting it directly. Kevin clung to the board, gasping and coughing up seawater. The rescue was proceeding exactly as trained, a textbook example of proper technique and victim management. The great white emerged from the deeper channel that ran parallel to the beach, a 14-foot male that had been following a school of leopard sharks through the area. The commotion on the surface, the irregular splashing, and Kevin's panicked movements registered as potential prey behavior. The shark accelerated toward the disturbance, its powerful tail driving it upward through the water column. Hannah felt the impact before she saw anything. The shark struck the underside of her rescue board with its snout, an investigatory bump that marine biologists would later classify as testing behavior. The force flipped the board sideways, throwing both Hannah and Kevin into the water. Hannah surfaced immediately, her training overriding any panic response, and looked around for Kevin while treading water. The shark circled back, its dorsal fin now visible, cutting through the surface. Hannah positioned herself between the predator and Kevin, who was screaming and thrashing. She knew the thrashing would only attract more attention, but getting Kevin to calm down while a shark circled seemed impossible. The great white made its second approach, this time targeting Hannah directly. Its jaws opened as it lunged, rows of serrated teeth visible for a fraction of a second. Hannah twisted in the water, using her rescue board as a shield. The shark's jaws closed on the board's edge, its teeth raking across her right thigh as the creature thrashed its head. Pain exploded through Hannah's leg, sharp and burning. She felt the tissue tear, felt the pressure of the bite even though the shark had not achieved a full grip. Blood clouded the water around her immediately. She jabbed the shark's eye area with the pointed end of her rescue paddle, a defensive technique taught in marine life encounter training. The shark released and pulled back, circling at a slightly greater distance. Hannah grabbed Kevin and hauled him onto the rescue board, adrenaline overriding the pain in her leg. She began kicking toward shore with her uninjured leg, using one arm to steady Kevin and the other to paddle. The shark followed for another 20 meters before disappearing beneath the surface, apparently losing interest. Other lifeguards had witnessed the encounter from shore. 2 guards on jet skis raced out to meet Hannah, reaching her within 90 seconds. They formed a protective escort as she continued toward the beach, their presence deterring any further approaches from the shark. Hannah made it to waist-deep water before her leg buckled beneath her. Fellow lifeguards caught her before she fell, dragging her onto dry sand, where they immediately assessed her injury. The shark had torn a deep laceration along her outer thigh, roughly 15 centimeters long and penetrating through fat tissue to muscle. The wound bled heavily but had missed major arteries. Paramedics arrived within minutes, applying pressure bandages and preparing for transport. Kevin Ochoa sat nearby, wrapped in towels and still shaking. He had escaped without physical injury, saved by Hannah's intervention, and the shark's apparent focus on her as the primary target. His parents arrived at the beach as paramedics loaded Hannah into an ambulance, his mother crying and his father trying to locate the lifeguard who had rescued his son. Hannah spent 4 hours in surgery, having her leg repaired. Doctors cleaned the wound, sutured the torn muscle, and administered antibiotics to prevent infection from bacteria common in shark mouths. She would require physical therapy but was expected to make a full recovery. The incident left her with a 20-centimeter scar and a permanent reminder of how quickly routine rescues could transform into life-threatening encounters. Beach officials closed the water for 48 hours following the attack, posting warnings about shark activity. Marine biologists noted that great white encounters remained statistically rare, but the combination of dense human activity and natural shark hunting behavior occasionally created dangerous overlaps. Hannah returned to lifeguard duty 3 months later, carrying both physical and psychological scars from the afternoon when her routine rescue became a fight for survival against one of the ocean's apex predators. The island of Grand Bahama sat in the northwestern region of the Bahamas archipelago, surrounded by shallow turquoise waters that stretched for miles before dropping into the deeper Atlantic. The coastline near Freeport featured a mixture of developed beach resorts and undeveloped stretches where mangrove systems gave way to sandy beaches and rocky outcroppings. The warm Caribbean waters maintained temperatures between 26 and 29 degrees Celsius year-round, creating ideal conditions for diverse marine life, including several species of sharks that patrolled the shallows hunting for fish, rays, and sea turtles. Ethan McAllister had arrived on Grand Bahama 3 days earlier, part of a group of 6 friends from Toronto who had planned the trip as an adventure vacation. At 26, Ethan worked as a marketing consultant but lived for outdoor activities that offered adrenaline and excitement. On August 14, 2019, he had rented a jet ski for the afternoon, planning to explore the coastline east of their resort, where fewer tourists ventured and the water remained relatively untouched. The morning had been spent lazily on the resort beach, but by early afternoon, Ethan felt restless. Several of his friends had rented paddleboards and were exploring the calmer waters near the shore, but Ethan wanted something more adventurous. He rented a jet ski from a beachside vendor who provided minimal instruction beyond basic operation and a vague warning about staying within sight of shore. The vendor, a local man named Winston, mentioned that the water could get rough in certain areas but said nothing about marine life. Ethan headed east along the coast, his jet ski cutting through small waves with ease. The shoreline gradually transformed from resort development to wild beach, coconut palms giving way to dense coastal vegetation. He passed several secluded coves where the water appeared impossibly clear, revealing a sandy bottom and scattered coral formations beneath. After riding for roughly 20 minutes, Ethan spotted what appeared to be a promising area for exploration. A small inlet featured calmer water protected by a natural breakwater of rocks and reef. Schools of baitfish moved in dense formations near the surface, their silver bodies flashing in the sunlight as they turned in synchronized patterns. Ethan slowed his jet ski and idled in the water, watching the fish with fascination. He noticed his friends in the distance, their paddleboards moving slowly along the shoreline closer to the resort area. The water depth in this area measured approximately 4 meters, deep enough for larger predators to patrol but shallow enough that the bottom remained visible. Ethan possessed little knowledge of marine ecosystems or the predator-prey relationships that governed these tropical waters. The tiger shark had been hunting along this stretch of coastline for the past 2 days, a 12-foot female with distinctive vertical stripes along her gray flanks. Tiger sharks earned their reputation as opportunistic feeders, consuming everything from fish and sea turtles to dolphins and carrion. This particular individual had successfully hunted in the inlet before, learning that baitfish concentrations often attracted other prey worth investigating. Ethan decided to explore closer to the baitfish school. He accelerated his jet ski, carving a tight turn that sent spray into the air. The sudden movement and noise, combined with the vibrations from the engine, transmitted through the water in patterns that caught the shark's attention. The predator rose from the deeper channel beyond the inlet, swimming toward the disturbance with powerful sweeps of its tail. The attack happened with shocking suddenness. The tiger shark surged upward from beneath Ethan's jet ski, striking the rear portion of the watercraft with its broad snout. The impact lifted the back end of the jet ski completely out of the water, throwing Ethan forward and then sideways into the ocean. He went under briefly, salt water flooding his nose and mouth, before surfacing with a gasp. Ethan's first thought was mechanical failure, some kind of explosion, or structural collapse of the jet ski. Then he saw the dorsal fin cutting through the surface 3 meters away, moving in a slow circle. His mind registered the danger even as his body seemed to freeze, treading water while trying to process what was happening. The shark completed its circle and approached again, this time bumping the floating jet ski with enough force to spin it partially around. Ethan could see the creature's full length now, could see the dark stripes and the powerful body designed for pursuit and consumption. Terror flooded through him, overriding rational thought. His friends on the paddleboards had seen the commotion and were paddling frantically toward him. From about 30 meters away, they began shouting loudly, their voices carrying across the water. "Ethan, swim! Move!" One of them, Sarah, had grabbed a coiled rope they'd been using to tie the paddleboards together. She began throwing it toward Ethan, the line falling short but creating splashes in the water. Another friend, Jason, slapped his paddle against the water's surface repeatedly, creating sharp cracking sounds. Ethan began swimming toward the paddleboards, his strokes desperate and poorly coordinated. The shark turned again, following his movement. It came in fast, its jaws opening as it prepared to test bite its potential prey. Ethan felt something brush against his right leg, rough skin scraping across his calf with sandpaper texture. He kicked violently, his foot connecting with something solid. The shark veered away, apparently discouraged by the resistance. Tiger sharks typically employed investigatory biting to determine if prey was worth pursuing, and Ethan's defensive kicks may have signaled that he was not the easy meal the shark had anticipated. The continued shouting and splashing from his friends on the paddleboards may have also created enough confusion to discourage further investigation. The predator circled once more at greater distance, then began moving back toward deeper water. Sarah managed to paddle close enough to throw the rope successfully. Ethan grabbed it with shaking hands, and his friends worked together to pull him toward the nearest paddleboard. With their help, he managed to cling to the side of Jason's board, his legs still trailing in the water as they began paddling desperately toward shallower areas near shore. The journey back felt interminable. Everyone was constantly scanning the water for any sign of the shark returning. They reached the beach within 5 minutes, Ethan half falling off the paddleboard into knee-deep water. He stumbled onto the sand and collapsed, his entire body shaking from adrenaline and delayed shock. His friends pulled the paddleboards onto the beach and crowded around him, checking for injuries. Ethan's right calf showed deep bruising and several shallow lacerations where the shark's skin had abraded his leg. The rough denticles that covered shark skin had torn through the upper layers of his epidermis, creating wounds that would require cleaning but were not serious. His left leg bore a larger bruise on the outer thigh, likely from impact with the shark's body or his own jet ski during the chaos. Ethan recounted the encounter between gasps, his description disjointed and repetitive, as his mind tried to process what had happened. Someone retrieved a first aid kit from the resort, cleaning and bandaging his wounds, while another friend contacted local authorities to report the shark presence. A local fisherman who witnessed them coming ashore confirmed that tiger sharks frequently hunted the inlet area, particularly during summer months when baitfish populations peaked. He seemed unsurprised by the encounter, noting that the sharks rarely attacked humans but would investigate anything that triggered their curiosity or predatory instincts. Ethan spent the remainder of the vacation recovering on the beach, his injured leg making further water activities impossible. The physical wounds healed within 2 weeks, but the psychological impact lasted considerably longer. He found himself experiencing anxiety around large bodies of water, the memory of that dorsal fin circling replaying involuntarily whenever he considered swimming. The encounter reinforced a lesson that tourists often learn through frightening experience. Tropical waters that appeared pristine and inviting functioned as hunting grounds for apex predators whose presence remained largely invisible until chance encounters brought humans and sharks into sudden, dangerous proximity. The northwestern coastline of Maui featured dramatic volcanic rock formations that had been shaped by millions of years of wave action and geological processes. Near Kapalua Bay, a series of ancient lava flows had created intricate tidal pool systems where ocean water flooded during high tide and became trapped in shallow depressions as the tide receded. These pools varied in size from bathtub dimensions to larger formations spanning 10 meters across, creating temporary ecosystems where small fish, crustaceans, and invertebrates waited for the tide to return. Local residents and knowledgeable visitors treated these tidal pools as natural aquariums, places to observe marine life without venturing into deeper ocean waters. The pools typically hosted harmless species like sergeant major fish, hermit crabs, sea urchins, and occasionally small octopuses that squeezed into rocky crevices. Most people assumed that larger predators could not access these shallow, isolated formations. Lucas Grant had turned 17, 2 weeks before his family's vacation to Maui. The teenager from Portland possessed an intense curiosity about marine biology, having spent countless hours watching nature documentaries and researching ocean ecosystems. His bedroom walls displayed posters of sharks, rays, and deep-sea creatures, and he maintained a saltwater aquarium at home. The tidal pools near their rental property seemed like perfect opportunities to observe species he had only encountered in books and videos. On the morning of March 5, 2021, Lucas convinced his younger sister Brielle and their friend Damien Rousseau to explore the pools during low tide. The three teenagers scrambled down the rocky cliff path that locals had worn into the volcanic stone over years of repeated use. The descent required careful attention to footing, as the rocks remained slippery from spray and algae growth, but presented no danger to reasonably coordinated climbers. They reached the tidal pool area around 9 in the morning, the tide having receded an hour earlier and still dropping. The largest pools contained clear water that allowed visibility straight to the bottom, revealing colorful anemones attached to rocks and small fish darting between hiding spots. Lucas carried a disposable underwater camera, hoping to document interesting specimens. The trio spread out across the rocky flat, each investigating different pools. Brielle found a pool containing what appeared to be juvenile parrotfish, their colors vibrant in the morning sunlight. Damien discovered several sea cucumbers and spent time trying to photograph them despite their lack of movement. Lucas moved toward a larger pool near the cliff edge where the water appeared deeper and darker. This particular pool measured roughly 8 meters long and 4 meters wide, with depths varying from ankle-deep along one edge to nearly waist-deep near the center. The increased depth suggested a connection to the ocean through some underwater channel, allowing water exchange even at low tide. Lucas waded in slowly, feeling the temperature drop as he moved toward the deeper section. He noticed a large boulder covered in colorful algae and coral growth near the pool's center. Leaning forward to examine what appeared to be a small moray eel in a crevice, Lucas extended his right hand to steady himself against the rock. His hand brushed against something that felt different from stone, something with texture and warmth. The blacktip shark had entered the pool during high tide several hours earlier, following small fish through a submerged channel. As the tide receded, the channel entrance became too shallow for easy passage, effectively trapping the shark in the pool until conditions changed. The 5-foot juvenile had been resting in the shadow of the boulder, its gray coloring blending with the rock and making it nearly invisible. The shark reacted to Lucas's touch with explosive speed. It lunged forward, its jaws snapping at the perceived threat. The creature's teeth grazed Lucas's right hand, leaving shallow cuts across his knuckles and palm. The shark's tail struck his left calf as it spun away, the impact delivering a blow that felt like being hit with a stick. Lucas jerked backward, losing his footing on the algae-covered rock and falling sideways into the water. He surfaced immediately, his hand throbbing and bleeding, his calf aching from the tail strike. The shark had retreated to the opposite end of the pool, its distinctive black-tipped fins now visible as it swam in agitated circles. Brielle heard the splash and her brother's startled yell. She ran across the rocks toward his pool, nearly slipping twice in her rush. Damien followed close behind, both teenagers calling out questions about what had happened. Lucas was already scrambling out of the pool, favoring his injured leg while clutching his bleeding hand. The three teenagers regrouped on dry rock, Lucas explaining between gasps that he had encountered a shark. Brielle initially thought he was joking, the idea of a shark in a shallow tidal pool seeming absurd. Then she saw the blood dripping from his hand and the parallel scrapes on his calf, evidence that something had definitely attacked him. They approached the pool cautiously and spotted the blacktip still swimming in the deeper section. The shark appeared just as agitated as Lucas, trapped in an unfamiliar environment and presumably stressed by the encounter. Damien suggested they should leave it alone and get Lucas's injuries treated. The climb back up the cliff path proved challenging with Lucas's injured hand and leg, but they managed to reach the rental property within 15 minutes. Lucas's mother, Patricia, cleaned his wounds with antiseptic and applied bandages. The cuts on his hand required butterfly closures but were not deep enough to need stitches. His calf showed bruising and abrasions but no puncture wounds. Patricia called a local urgent care clinic to confirm treatment protocol and mentioned the shark encounter. The nurse on the phone expressed surprise, noting that blacktip sharks occasionally entered shallow areas but rarely became trapped in tidal pools. She recommended monitoring the wounds for signs of infection, as bacteria from marine environments could cause complications even in relatively minor injuries. Lucas spent the rest of the vacation avoiding the tidal pools, his enthusiasm for hands-on marine biology research temporarily dampened by the experience. The encounter had taught him a valuable lesson about making assumptions regarding where predators could and could not exist. Even small sharks possess defensive instincts and physical capabilities that could harm curious humans. Local residents later confirmed that juvenile blacktips occasionally became trapped in the larger tidal pools during extreme low tides, usually escaping when water levels rose again. Most tourists never encountered them because the sharks typically remained hidden and motionless, conserving energy until they could return to the open ocean. Lucas had simply been unlucky enough to invade the shark's hiding spot at exactly the wrong moment. The wounds healed completely within 3 weeks, leaving faint scars on Lucas's hand that would fade over time. The psychological impact proved more lasting, instilling a healthy respect for marine environments and the unpredictable nature of wildlife encounters, even in locations that appeared completely safe and controlled.